Ladies and gentlemen, see that signpost up ahead? That's our stop, the Whaley House. Beyond the brick walls of this old mansion lies another dimension, a dimension filled with history and mystery, a dimension where the shadows of the past mingle with the living. We have the key to unlock the door, not only to the past, but to the imagination. So, imagine, if you will, sweeping back the veil of time, leaving you upon the threshold of a bygone era in early San Diego. Imagine these once dusty streets traversed by fringed-top rockaway carriages heading directly this way, conveying partygoers anxious to arrive at their destination for a lively fandango. If you listen carefully, you can almost hear the rustle of heavy silk skirts as the ladies disembark their carriages, greeted by raucous laughter and singing coming through the lace-curtained windows.
When Thomas Whaley arrived in San Diego in 1851, he found a small Pueblo community called Old Town, and he described it as
a ramshackle affair consisting of tile-roofed adobe dwellings, a handful of stores, 2 hotels, an apothecary shop, 1 physician, 3 lawyers, a Catholic chapel inside a home, and no amusements except for fiestas, fandangos, and bullfights in the plaza.
It was a lawless time, and just north of the old cemetery stood the menacing gallows from which Juan Verdugo, William Marshall, and boat thief Yankee Jim Robinson met their maker, while Thomas Whaley watched among the crowd. After the 1852 execution of Yankee Jim Robinson, the site of the gallows was put up for sale at a bargain rate. Not dissuaded by the prior use of the property, Whaley purchased the 9-acre lot and in 1856 began constructing his home directly atop the site where the gallows once stood.
Join me now as we cross over to what renowned parapsychologist Hans Holzer coined America's most haunted, the Whaley House. This was the first portion to be constructed, beginning in 1856, and it was then that strange things began to occur. Built originally as a granary, it has been used as a dance hall, party venue, church, Sunday school, billiards hall, theater, polling place, and even a toy store, and it also served as the county seat from 1869 through 1871. It did not take long for the family to take note of these strange occurrences. With Thomas away on business 2 months after moving in, his wife Anna wrote him stating,
"I am often startled awake at night, thinking you have come home,"
only to find no one there and the darkness her sole companion. According to youngest daughter Lillian, her father Thomas remarked upon hearing heavy disembodied footsteps in the house that could not be accounted for. Footsteps he presumed to belong to the perturbed wraith of Yankee Jim Robinson.
The people around Old Town think our house is haunted, and once when we rented it, the tenants went through the ceremony of exorcising with lighted candles and many prayers, whatever evil influence lingered about Yankee Jim supposedly.
Thomas's eldest son, Francis Hinton Whaley, was elected Justice of the Peace in 1881, acting as a circuit judge who coincidentally, intermittently held court in this room over a period of 20 years. One of the more unique and long-standing rumored purposes for this room was its use as a temporary morgue. And while we do not as yet have conclusive evidence that this is true, Francis Whaley's ledger verifies that he did funeral accounting work for W. W. Whitson, the county coroner. Note the Wooten desk adjacent to the judge's bench, also known as a pigeonhole desk. This elaborate walnut fall-front desk, the so-called king of desks, was patented in 1870 by William S. Wooten, and no well-furnished office space was without one. According to Frank's papers, he used such a desk in this very room, both for his work as a judiciary and during the time he kept books for the county coroner. The furnishings you see in this room are a combination of original pieces in addition to fittings from the Newtown courthouse that replaced this one. At least 8 people died within the footprint of this house. In addition to the 3 men executed on this property, Thomas Tanner, leader of the Tanner Troop, passed away here in the home, as did 3 of the Whaley children, 17-month-old Tommy in his parents' bedroom, 22-year-old Violet in the study, and eldest child, 59-year-old Frank, here in the courtroom. And finally Anna, the lady of the house, passed away in the first-floor guest room at the age of 81. Lillian lived here until shortly before her death at the age of 89 on September 4, 1953, and had become the keeper of the family history. Through her personal writings and preservation of tens of thousands of family papers and documents detailing their lives, and the ghostly legends attached to this incredible home, we are able to share these stories with you. As we visit the Whaleys this evening, we will learn more about the family and their home and the folklore attached to it. You will be witness to a moment in time when it was home to the family, the Whaley and Crossthwaite General Store, San Diego's first commercial theater operated by the renowned Tanner Troupe, and of course the county seat of San Diego. Thomas Whaley designed and built this structure with a general store in mind, so we'll begin here before heading into the residential quarters.
Welcome to the Whaley and Crossthwaite General Store, where we'll do a little window shopping before heading next door. As a merchant, Thomas Whaley owned and operated many stores in his life, and in 1869 partnered with fellow pioneer Philip Crossthwaite to operate their store here. They sold all manner of merchandise, including liquor and tobacco, fabric, foodstuffs, dishes, hardware, shoes, toys and dolls, carpet and wallpaper. A liquor license was necessary to serve the libations available here while court was in session next door. Notice the liquor bottles labeled with the Whaley and Crossthwaite logo. This was a common practice among store owners of the time. As you can see, they sold whiskey, rum, Madeira wine, gin, and brandy. After Whaley and Crossthwaite was liquidated, Whaley operated a saloon here, which was far more profitable than the store, as he only had to stock tobacco and liquor. When the court was moved in 1871 to its third location in Newtown, his liquor business dried up, and this room became his real estate office. As Thomas spent the majority of his time in this portion of the building, his presence is often felt here. While he could be jovial and flirtatious at social gatherings and parties, his usual deportment was the opposite of his wife Anna, who was a charming, effervescent individual.
I am quite the reverse, grave and sedate as a demon. I wish it were not so, but it is nature to me.
The sudden aroma of tobacco will fill the area. The sound of a man whistling and even calling your name are said to sometimes be heard here. The spirits of Yankee Jim and Thomas Whaley appear to be actively occupying the space, though on different planes or layers, and do not seem to be aware of each other's presence. The apparition of a man in dark Victorian attire has been seen gliding from this room into the living quarters, and that's where we're headed next. Let's close up shop and see if anyone's home. This is the main hallway of the home. To add a sense of opulence, it was common to create the illusion of stone or marble walls, especially in a Greek Revival-style home. Soho's restoration revealed the Whaleys painted their white ash woodwork in a golden oak faux bois, another typical decorative treatment.
This front parlor was Anna's pride and joy. Lillian recalled that her father and brother Frank wallpapered these rooms in a white and gilt paper. The blue and rose tones in the paper coordinate appropriately with the Brussels wool carpet pattern we selected, an 1850s pattern produced on English looms like that which produced the original carpet, and which, like this pattern, contained the color rose. Many of the furnishings you see here belong to the family. This was a happy place where the family entertained, a place to gather after supper each evening to sing songs, read aloud to one another, and generally amuse themselves. A stereoscope like this one allowed the family and guests to view faraway exotic lands or view comical scenes in 3D, the precursor to the popular Viewmaster. Cards and games were another favorite pastime for the family. The children enjoyed playing classics like Old Maid, and 7-year-old Lily used to sit here at the center table and play cribbage with her father in the evening.
We play crib in the evenings. Lily has very much improved, can play the game alone, being able to discard and count her game tolerably well.
Anna and all the children were proficient in singing and able to play any variety of instruments. Songs such as My Grandfather's Clock, the Jenny Lind Polka, and The Man on the Flying Trapeze were among the family's favorites. Claiming to know just a few verses to one song, Thomas was rarely a participant, but he was always an appreciative audience. This is Anna's pump organ, which is still in working condition. Many people ask about this piece of sheet music. A particular favorite of Violet's, she regularly sang this song while accompanying herself on guitar in this very room. Her Bright Smile Haunts Me Still is about the ghost of a woman who follows the sailor she loves out to sea. Lillian enjoyed playing the piano, guitar, and mandolin. It was her desire to become an operatic singer. Unfortunately, due to many illnesses which affected her throat, she had to abandon her singing career, which was her greatest disappointment in life. She described her mother as a fashionable French brunette with large, lovely blue eyes and olive skin. A charming and lively hostess who, even in a remote outpost like San Diego, had plenty of friends over to discuss fashion, engage in some light gossip over a cigarette, or play cards. Anna's favorite method of entertaining was telling fortunes. There were many ways to accomplish this popular parlor entertainment, by way of reading tea leaves or using tarot cards. We don't know Anna's preference, but we do know she told the fortunes of many Old Town housewives at the center table in this room. Her continued presence is most commonly made known through the aroma of her heavy, sweet perfume. As the grande dame of the house, she makes her all too brief appearances upon the settee, attired in a green silk gown, perhaps about to enjoy a sip of tea or take a few stitches upon her sampler, which would surely read Home Sweet Home. Our dearly departed friend Regis Philbin once witnessed Anna materialize in this room in the 1960s, and she has been momentarily spotted here on numerous occasions since. This archway separating the front parlor from the study is reputed by none other than Thomas himself to be the approximate site of the gallows from which Bill Marshall, Juan Verdugo, and Yankee Jim Robinson were hanged before the house was built. Having nothing to do with superstition, the location of the archway in relation to the gallows is purely coincidental. It was merely a desirable architectural feature commonly used to separate front and back parlors.
Thomas spent many hours in this chair, hunched over this very desk, writing letters, figuring profits and losses, often in the evening wearing his comfortable slippers and smoking cap, puffing away on his father's pipe. We have already told you a bit about daughter Violet and her young life, but now we must speak of her tragic end. Violet passed away on August 19, 1885, having elected to abbreviate her life at the age of 22 due to depression compounded by life events and marriage to a man who had many problems. The marriage culminated in a divorce and annulment, which was encouraged by her parents. Violet was ordinarily a can-do person, but with her friends marrying and moving away to raise families of their own, she was lonely and felt confined here in Old Town.
So wags the world. I wish the world had a bobtail, and its wagging then would not be so severe. This old town is the cause of many things that might not have been. I feel it is not in me now to rally.
A few nights prior to her death, Thomas took Violet to Newtown to see a play at Leech's Opera House called The Haunted House.
Violet and I went Saturday evening to see the performance at Newtown. She seemed interested in it. It was about 12 o'clock when we got home. Told her mama and sister Lily what she had seen better than I could have. It was the last time she was ever in Newtown.
At 6 o'clock that fateful morning, Violet obtained her father's pistol from a locked box, took it with her to the outhouse, and fired it directly into her heart. Thomas quickly ran to the outhouse, gathered Violet in his arms, and struggled to carry her through the yard and the back door, through the hallway and into this room, where he laid her upon the lounge. According to the San Diego Union, her long jetty locks were combed back from an olive brow, high and broad, indicative of mental power, capable of extreme joy in success or of frenzied despair in adversity. About 10 minutes later, Violet passed quietly from this life into the next realm. The family was devastated. Upon the tragic suicide of their daughter in 1885, Anna wrote,
I think the house is doomed and possessed of spirits, and imagine the presence of something around me.
Too much for a mother to bear, and at Anna's insistence, the family moved to Newtown a few months later, leaving this house unoccupied, or so it would seem, for many years. The sound of a woman softly humming is sometimes heard in this area of the house, in the hallway and dining room, and we feel it may be the spirit of Violet.
Here in the dining room, we see a beautiful period reproduction wallpaper. Soho selected the fleur-de-lis design as a nod to Anna's French heritage. The flickering lights of the lamps across the gilded gold paper help to brighten the room. The period furnishings in this room represent the fashionable decor the Whaleys preferred. These include the Rococo Revival sideboard and balloon-backed chairs, which appear to be upholstered in black silk, but it is in fact woven horsehair, a sturdy fabric commonly used in dining rooms. The floor cloth was a common feature of the 19th century dining room. Easy to clean, it was a precursor to linoleum. This is the room where the family pets are frequently encountered. Dolly Varden, a Scotch Terrier, and Winks, a favored black cat, seem to be the usual suspects, seen running through the hallway and into the dining room, darting under the table. The presence of a child is also sensed in this area. She was first discovered by renowned British psychic and Wiccan Sybil Leek on a visit with Hans Holzer in 1965. We don't know the identity of the child, and while there are a couple of possibilities, none can be confirmed.
Soho reproduced this lean-to kitchen using period building techniques and Thomas's original drawings. The wood-burning stove is fully operational, making this a functional 19th century kitchen. The floor cloth, checked in black and white, is typical and can be easily swept and mopped. The washstand belonged to the family, along with the table and chair and the wooden dough bowl. The scent of tobacco was sometimes detected in this room, wafting into the dining room, along with the aroma of fresh-baked bread and pies. Though all the females in the household baked, we feel it could be Anna herself who was responsible for whetting our appetites.
Mother did the cooking, and a famous cook she was. She was known far and wide for her apple dumplings, roly-polies, suet puddings, and gingerbread, to say nothing of her roast and pies and donuts and cupcakes. But then, of course, Mother was French, and what else could you expect?
There are many legends of the Whaley house, and none is perhaps quite as nostalgic as the legend of the ninth step, where untold numbers of visitors have had experiences. Most report a cold spot or an icy breeze as they pass, and some feel a barrier or presence that seems to want to stop them from ascending the staircase any farther. The revenant of Thomas has often been seen on the stair landing. When the Whaleys first moved into this home in 1857, these two rooms were used as their parlor and dining room. From October 1868 through January 1869, Thomas leased this space to the Tanner Troupe, led by the renowned Thomas W. Tanner. The agreement between Whaley and Tanner created San Diego's very first commercial theater right here in this room. This advertisement for opening night boasts of their diverse repertoire. Soho recreated the Tanner Troupe Theater using period techniques, such as the raked stage, which allows the audience a full view of the actors performing. The backdrop and wings were painted using traditional methods. It has always been considered bad luck to operate a theater without a ghost. Fortunately, this one came ready-made with its own, the ghost of Yankee Jim Robinson. Opening night saw the sale of 150 tickets, and it appeared the new theater would be a great success. Sadly, luck ran out for Thomas Tanner. 17 days into production, he unexpectedly passed away after a performance here on the second floor. As the old saying goes, the show must go on, and Tanner's unfinished business, after opening what he hoped would be a long-lived theater, may hold him to this space. The scent of tobacco and the spirit of a man is frequently sensed in the back row of seats. Perhaps it is the spirit of Tanner himself reviewing ghostly rehearsals of song and dance that elude our 21st century eyes and ears.
This is Thomas and Anna's bedroom, where their first daughter, Nanny, was born. She was their only child born in this house. At least 2 generations were rocked in this Hunzinger-style rocking chair, an original family piece. Anna spent many hours sewing for her family and teaching her daughters to sew on an 1860s model sewing machine like this one. This simple woven straw rug, still enormously popular in modern home decor, was a common feature of 19th century bedrooms, especially in warmer regions such as San Diego. One of youngest daughter Lillian's earliest memories at age 4 is of her mother Anna sitting in this room sewing.
Mama sat at a sewing machine. The floor was covered with close woven straw matting, the pattern of which danced before the eyes like shimmering heat on a sweltering day.
Soon after Violet's death, her mother Anna took a sojourn to Los Angeles to stay with friends and recover. Anna referenced these late 19th century Japanese jars on the mantel in a letter to Thomas.
I really cannot see how you can stay in this old house. I think the inside is worse than the outside. I think the house is doomed. Still, it must be looked after, I suppose. Put away the books, Japanese jars, family pictures, feather wreath, and all things that we can use. I would like to help you, but I think I would have a fit if I was there. I imagine I can see our poor dear Violet standing in the hall, grinning at me as she used to do whenever I came near her. She used to make my blood run cold in the veins the way she would look at me and grin. I cannot get over the influence yet. It seems to me at night as if she were in the room. The sewing machine I fancy, I should judge from the description of this make of machine, that it is the most simple and light-running of all the machines. The girls will have a great use for one. We want a good, substantial machine, one they can all take a turn at. Violet is very smart with her needle. She can cut and fit and make all her clothes. Nanny makes her own clothes, too.
It was common for ladies to have a writing desk of their own, and Anna received one for Christmas in 1872. In a letter to her daughter Nanny, who was staying with her grandmother Lene at the time, Anna wrote,
Your humble servant got a very nice writing desk on which I am now writing, and this paper that I am writing upon, you will notice my monogram at the head. That constitutes all of the presents floating around here in the holidays.
Scarlet fever arrived in San Diego in 1858 and crept inside the Whaley's front door, infecting their second child, 17-month-old Tommy, which placed the home and businesses on a mandatory 2-week quarantine. It was in this room on a cold January night, just 6 months after taking residency in this house, where little Tommy passed away in his young mother's arms near this fireplace, as his parents' tears and desperate prayers failed to keep him from slipping beyond the veil. This image of Tommy is from a watercolor portrait painted by family friend George Hay Ringgold, which was enclosed in a brooch for Anna to wear and keep her baby close to her heart. Many visitors stepping into this room experience a sense of intrusion, as though they are not welcome here, along with a range of sensations near and inside the doorway, feeling unbalanced or dizzy. This may be due to the presence of Thomas or Anna, perhaps wishing to remain in solitude. The sound of a man clearing his throat is also often heard.
This was first Frank and Tommy's room. Then later, in 1869, Violet and Lillian shared it. The crib in the corner is an original family piece used by 3 generations of Whaley babies. The dolls are also typical of the era, and we've named a few of them after the dolls the children had: Florence Woods, Alice Gray, and Jenny Warner. This tiny tea set from the 1870s belonged to the children as well. Nanny, Violet, and Lily must have had some wonderful tiny tea parties with their porcelain friends. If you should walk past the house in the evening, you may have noticed that there is always a light shining from this window. The reason stems from Violet and Lily's childhood.
Once, Violet and I frightened ourselves into a fit of screaming because one of us said she saw a skeleton on the ceiling. It was a long time before Papa and Mama could get us quiet and resulted in leaving a light on in the room for that night, and no doubt afterward.
The toys you see here are typical of the period, and the nursery was described by Lillian in her memoirs.
Toys of all description lay about, mine in order, Violet scattered in confusion.
The sounds of a toddler's laughter and cries have been heard in this room, and the specter of a small child has been momentarily witnessed playing here.
This room was once shared by the older children, and the furnishings are typical of the era. The toys, puzzles, and books reflect the interests of Frank, Nanny, and George. A love of reading was shared by the entire family, and the home was always filled with books. The bow and arrows were typical toys of the time. A prolific diarist, Lillian began a personal journal in 1886 and continued to add to it, volume after volume, until shortly before her death at 89 in 1953. Lillian recorded not only her family history, but also the paranormal occurrences she experienced in the home. These journals and other family papers were found in this trunk, where they had been stored for decades.
As she grew into her golden years, Lillian preferred to avoid the second floor due to a presence that made her uncomfortable. The odd square on the hallway ceiling brings questions from many of our guests. It was a skylight commonly placed above stairwells to bring in extra light. Shortly after little Tommy's death in 1858, a rare occurrence struck San Diego.
We have had a terrible tornado which has done considerable damage here. I sustained the blowing away of my skylight, the same shining brighter than ever, though we are still left in the dark, regardless what hour it is.
Many of our visitors sense a distinct presence of a young woman lingering near this window, and many perceive a sense of sorrow here that is attributed to Violet. Lillian recorded many of the vivid dreams she had about Violet's death.
Queer dreams as usual. Found myself clinging to an overhanging rock which butted inward. Violet was with me. Below us raged the sea over sharp, jagged rocks. We struggled to keep our hold. Violet fell and was dashed on the rocks, but a moment later got up and walked off.
Or was it Yankee Jim's presence Lillian sensed? Like her parents nearly a century earlier, she too heard disembodied footsteps trod up and down the stairs and across this hallway at night.
The dark. I dread it sometimes. That is in certain parts of this house. Makes my flesh creep. Since seeing that figure in the house and also seeing that door close here without anything to close it, I've been on the lookout for other demonstrations. I must tell about the steps on the stairs. I had gone to bed late, about 11. Slept until 12:30 when I heard what sounded like heavy steps going downstairs, like the footsteps of someone carrying something heavy. I heard these steps go downstairs twice. My curiosity got the better of me. I crept quietly downstairs, turning on lights as I went, but there was no sign of any living thing.
In the 1870s, the guest room was frequented by visiting friends and family. In 1913, this was Anna's bedroom and last place of repose. On February 24, 1913, at 11:30 p.m., attended by her children Frank and Lillian, 81-year-old Anna Eloise Whaley whispered her last words
It's a martyrdom.
just before she passed away, leaving her life here in this dusty frontier pueblo behind. It was a difficult life, one in which Anna buried 3 children, her husband, a granddaughter, and a great-granddaughter, heartaches which no amount of silk gowns, lace curtains, and Brussels carpets could soften. As Anna's body lay upon the bed, Lillian bathed and dressed her mother in a black gown before she was laid out in a beautiful small gray casket, identical to the one her eldest daughter Nanny was buried in 8 years earlier. The intimate funeral, the last to take place here, was followed by a private interment at the family plot in Mount Hope Cemetery, a distance of 9 miles for the horse-drawn carriages and hearse, a fading practice in the new era of the automobile. In the days after Anna's death, Lillian wrote,
For some occult reason, I seem to see Mama journeying along quietly and happily, in good companionship and out of her misery.
We want to thank you for joining us on this special tour of the Whaley's home, and we hope that you were able to obtain a fleeting glimpse into the lives of the members of this important San Diego pioneer family, and a moment in time that, while lost forever, has not been forgotten. It has been over a century since Thomas and Anna Whaley left this physical plane behind, yet no matter how much time passes, it seems their spirits continue to dwell here. What binds them so tightly to this place? We believe that the tragic circumstances of Violet's passing may hold the key. Initially rejecting the notion that her ancestral home was haunted, Lillian became resigned to the fact, stating in her journal,
Here I am, 60 years of age and living in a haunted house.
Fearing that her talented family would fall into obscurity, she once wrote,
We ought to have been a most famous bunch.
Little did she know toward the end of her life journey that her fears were unfounded.